Hey guys, welcome to the Mom Show. I'm your host, Courtney Doyle, and this is a place I am giving you permission to not have it all together. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Last week on the show, I had such a great conversation with Jennifer Dukesley about mornings and rhythms and the way we begin our day. And one of the things that she said really has stayed with me. It's not about when you wake up. It's about how you wake up. And that was so encouraging for someone who has coined herself not a morning person, because I just am not. So I loved that, because I think so many of us, we hear conversations about mornings and we immediately feel like we're behind. We think that, if we're not the woman that wakes up at 5 a.m., has the perfect quiet time, drinks a green smoothie, works out, reads her Bible, lights a candle, and has somehow already become her best self before the rest of us have even opened one eye, well, then we feel like we're behind. And if you're a mom in a busy season, sometimes that message can make you feel really defeated. And that's not very encouraging. But what Jennifer said, and what I've really been thinking about ever since then, is that the time is not about perfection. It's about intention. And honestly, that has connected so deeply with me this season because, I'm at home, and for the last several months, I've been home a lot, and there has been a lot going on around here. I am typically one, I do like to get up and I get out and run my errands and things like that. But in the middle of this kitchen remodel, I couldn't really do that. I had to be around for the questions and things like that. And if you've ever lived through any kind of project in your home, then you know exactly what that feels like. The chaos, the dust, the noise, everything out of place. I felt so disjointed in my own home. It was just an interruption of my normal life, my normal routine. And really, there were parts of that were fun, and there were a lot of parts of that were real not fun. But what this did, though, that kept me a little excited was looking forward to the ending. And I do love the evolution of a project. I love the discovery of what's coming next and what it can become. You've come with me to antique stores and places like that, like the discovery of what is this going to look like and how do I make it my own and best for my family. I love seeing that process unfold and figuring it out. In the middle of this remodel, I started realizing something that I didn't realize. This wasn't really just about changing my kitchen. It was about creating a space with intention, a space that functioned better for our family. And really, it gave us an opportunity for reset. And I think that has felt more than just like a home project. I do think it's felt a little bit like a renewal on other levels as well. Sometimes God will use a disruption to invite us into something new. And it's not always something dramatic. Sometimes it's just something that we need to do more intentional. With this new kitchen, I have been able to organize it differently, purge what we didn't need, and really think more carefully about what are the things that I want in here and how do I want them to function. And that process has made it really fun and exciting, but it's also made me think about things in my life in other areas. Like, what am I holding on to that no longer serves me well in this season? What rhythms are life-giving? And what am I doing just because that's the way I've always done it before? Where's God inviting me into simplify things, reset things, and maybe make room for some other things? And so that reset has not just been physical in the kitchen, but it has been practical and spiritual. There are few rhythms in my life that really do help me feel grounded. For instance, I make my bed every morning. It's a non-negotiable. It's small, but that is something that really helps me begin the day feeling like I've got one thing done. And when my kids were little, sometimes that was the only thing I got done. I love opening the windows and letting the sunlight in. There is just something about light filling in a room that changes the atmosphere. I like getting dressed. I like doing my hair and makeup every morning. My mom used to tell me, when you look good, you feel good. And she was right. And again, when the kids were little, there was so many times that I would say, well, I'm just not going to get myself together. I'm going to, piddle around the house or do things that I need to do around the house. And inevitably, when that would happen, somebody needed me. I needed to pick somebody up from school. And look, yes, can you pick your kid up from school without makeup on? Of course you can. But it always seemed to be that something happened that required me to be out of the house. And I prefer to have makeup on. I prefer for my hair to be done. I mean, I have a short haircut. If I don't fix it, I'm looking a little like Einstein. So I know it's simple, but there is just some truth in taking care of yourself in small ways that helps you show up differently. It helps you confront the day differently. Sundays are a reset day for me. I have a really hard time just resting on a Sunday. I know my family really hates that about me too, but I love to spend a Sunday catching up on all of the laundry. I actually don't do a ton of laundry during the week unless there's uniforms or things that are necessities for that week. But if I can put it off and do all of my laundry on a Sunday afternoon, I'm good with that. I like to sit down on a Sunday evening and maybe we'll watch a show or something, and that's when I fold. But I like to spend my Sundays getting the house back in order, doing little things that are going to help the week ahead feel less chaotic. Rhythms matter. But I also want to say something honestly, and especially because it does tie back to what Jennifer and I talked about last week. I have tried so many times to create the perfect, quote unquote, perfect quiet time or rhythm, the perfect devotional routine, the perfect prayer schedule, the perfect spiritual start to the day. And what I have found, at least in the season of trying to force that into this perfect box, begins to feel more performative than it does personal. And I think a lot of moms need permission to hear that, because when we start believing that our time with God only counts if it happens a certain way at a certain time in a certain chair with a certain journal and a certain mood and a certain candle and all these certainties, then what often happens is this: if we miss any version of it, we feel like we failed. And that's not the heart of God. And that's not the posture in the heart that he wants us to have. One of the things that I loved in my conversation with Jennifer when she talked about the difference between a routine and a ritual, I feel like a routine can sound very much like a performance. I grew up dancing. I grew up, with children having performances. And when I hear the word routine, it tells my brain perform. And like it's something that we were taught to do, and we have to execute it correctly and not miss a beat. But a ritual feels so much more personal to me. It feels sacred and relational and just like I can accomplish that. That language, it really stayed with me, because for me, my relationship with God is the healthiest when I feel like it's an ongoing communication, not just a box that I've checked. And as a busy mom, it often has to be easier for me. It has to be easy for me just to stop and pray throughout the day, or to worship when I'm getting ready, or whenever I'm in the car rider line or whatever, read when I just have a few quiet minutes, or journal when something is stirring up in me. I love to talk to God in the car, when I'm falling asleep, when I'm waking up, or to pause in the middle of a conversation. I have been in the middle of conversations with my kids, and in my brain, I'm pausing and I'm saying, God, I need some wisdom, or I need peace. I need strength. Maybe this is where I really need to keep my mouth shut. I have prayed that prayer often. This has been real life for me. And I think sometimes we just miss the holiness that is in those little small moments, because we think, well, they're not polished enough. But that's a lie. They are very polished in God's eyes, and they are still very holy. God's not inviting us or waiting for us to have this perfect performance. He's inviting us into a relationship. So maybe this episode isn't about you creating the perfect morning. Maybe it's about asking, what helps you wake up with hope? What helps you begin your day with intention? What helps you create space for God in the life that you're actually living today, which looks different for all of us. Not an imaginary version, not an Instagram version, but, and not the version that has no interruptions or no children or no responsibilities or no noise. I don't know who is getting that opportunity if you're a mom. I'm talking about the real version. Maybe your ritual is coffee and a prayer. Maybe it is opening the blinds and thanking God for a new day. Maybe your ritual is waking up and checking your phone. That's not that terrible. Maybe it's worship music while you're getting dressed or making your bed, and you're asking the Lord to order your steps as you're doing the steps that it takes to make a bed, right? Maybe it's a verse on the counter, conversations with a fellow Christian friend, a mentor, in the pickup line. I have a ritual and a standing meeting with somebody pretty much every day at 2:30. And some days we are just venting about all things mom. Some days we're talking about house remodels. We talk about everything. And I look forward to those 2:30 conversations. They matter to me. And it's so nice to be able to just vent with no judgment on the other side. Your rituals don't have to look like someone else's. And that's what I want you to hear today. This kitchen remodel reminded me that sometimes a reset begins by clearing out what no longer fits and creating room for what does, and being intentional about what we build next. And I think it's true in our homes. I think it's true in our schedules. And I specifically think it's really true in our spiritual lives as well. You do not need a perfect system. You do not need a picture perfect rhythm. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to pay attention to what helps you live with more peace and more purpose and more connection to God in whatever season you're in. Because renewal doesn't always come through grand changes. Sometimes it just comes through small, faithful rhythms. And sometimes the reset God is offering you is not about becoming more impressive. It's about becoming more intentional. I hope this episode has encouraged you. It's given you a little food for thought and maybe given you a little permission to just maybe don't put so much pressure on yourself. Find what works for you and be okay with that. Be okay with it. I hope you're encouraged. I hope you share this with a friend who you think maybe needs a little permission to let go of a performative rhythm and embrace a more personal, grace-filled reset. If you missed last week's conversation with Jennifer Duxley, I recommend you go back and listen. It was such a good one. And I'll see you next week. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks so much for listening to The Mom Show with Courtney Doyle. Remember to check the show notes for any links, books, or other resources that are mentioned in each episode. We want to make sure this blesses other mothers. And in order to do this, if you're listening via podcast, be sure that you like and share. If you could write a review, that would be fantastic. It helps us get in front of other moms. If you're watching via YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. This way, you won't ever miss an episode. We want to make sure that we increase our reach to other mothers who need a little encouragement, a community, and a whole lot of Jesus. We're so glad you're here.